I still remember the exact moment everything fell apart. November 14th, standing in the receiving line at Mom's funeral, shaking hands with people I barely recognized anymore. That's when I saw it. The ring, not just any ring, Mom's antique wedding ring. The one she'd worn for 43 years until arthritis forced her to stop. The one she'd held my hand with when I was 6 and told me, "Someday, Elizabeth, this will be yours." It was on Scarlett's finger. My sister stood there in her perfect black dress, dabbing her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, accepting condolences like she was auditioning for a role. And maybe she was. Because I'm telling you, she played that grieving daughter part flawlessly. She'd organized everything, the flowers, the service, the catering. She knew everyone's names, hugged all the right people, said all the right things. I felt sick looking at that ring, but I told myself I was being petty. Mom had just died. This wasn't the time. God, I was so stupid. The funeral was on a Thursday. The will reading was the following Monday. I took off work. I'm a 3rd-grade teacher, and missing school isn't easy, but obviously I had to be there. I arrived at the lawyer's office 10 minutes early because that's how Mom raised me. Be on time, be respectful, be prepared. Scarlett rolled in 20 minutes late with her husband Rick, reeking of expensive perfume and carrying a designer bag that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She didn't even apologize. The lawyer, this older guy named Mr. Peterson who'd known our family for decades, looked uncomfortable from the start. He kept clearing his throat, adjusting his glasses, reorganizing papers that were already organized. That should have been my first clue. He started reading. The formal language, the being of sound mind stuff. Then he got to the assets. The house, our childhood home, the place where Mom taught me to bake cookies and helped me with homework at the kitchen table, left to Scarlett. The bank accounts, left to Scarlett. The investments Dad had set up before he died, left to Scarlett. Mom's jewelry collection, antique furniture, even her car. All Scarlett. I got nothing. Not a single thing. I sat there feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. Mr. Peterson wouldn't meet my eyes. Scarlett was crying, but I swear I saw a smile underneath those tears. "I don't understand," I finally managed to say. My voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. "Mom always said—" Mom changed her mind, Scarlett cut me off. Her voice was sharp now, the grieving daughter act dropping just enough for me to see what was underneath. "Maybe if you'd visited more, if you'd actually been there for her, things would be different." The words hit like a slap. Because here's the thing, I had visited, every other weekend, without fail, for 5 years. I'd called Mom 3 times a week, sent her pictures of my students, flowers on her birthday, care packages when she mentioned missing her favorite tea. But after the reading, when I tried talking to my aunts, my cousins, even Mom's best friend Linda, they all looked at me with this mixture of pity and disappointment. Scarlett had gotten to them first, apparently. Spent months telling them how I'd abandoned Mom, how I was too busy with my career to care about family, how she was the only one who'd been there. All lies. But they believed her. I left that office feeling like I'd lost everything. My inheritance, sure, but also my family's respect, my childhood home, and somehow even my memories of Mom seemed tainted now. Had she really stopped loving me? Had I failed her without realizing it? Scarlett moved into the house that same week. I drove by once and saw her already redecorating, throwing out Mom's things like they were garbage. I spent that entire week in a fog, crying at random times, unable to sleep, questioning everything. My principal noticed and gently suggested I take some personal days. I said no. Teaching those kids was the only thing keeping me sane. It was exactly 7 days after the funeral when my phone buzzed during lunch duty. Unknown number. I almost didn't check it because I'd been getting spam calls constantly, but something made me look. It was from Mom's number. My heart stopped. For a second, in that awful, desperate way grief makes you stupid, I thought maybe it had all been a mistake. Maybe she wasn't really gone. But no. The message had been scheduled, sent automatically. Mom must have set it up before she died. The message contained a single word: evidence. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped my phone. One of my students asked if I was okay. I wasn't okay. I wasn't anywhere close to okay. Because if Mom left evidence, that meant she knew. She knew something was wrong. She knew what Scarlett was doing, and she'd left me a way to fight back. What did Mom leave behind? Keep reading to find out. I sat in my car in the school parking lot after dismissal, staring at that text for probably 20 minutes. My students had all been picked up. The other teachers had left. The janitor was probably wondering why I hadn't moved. Finally, I opened it. The word evidence was actually a link. When I clicked it, it took me to a cloud storage account I didn't even know Mom had. The login information was automatically filled in. She'd set it up specifically for me. Inside were 247 files. I'm not exaggerating. 247 files. Screenshots, PDFs, audio recordings, even videos. All dated, all organized, all labeled in Mom's meticulous handwriting. Well, digital handwriting, but you know what I mean. I started with a folder labeled forgeries. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through. Scarlett's signature next to Mom's on deed transfers, except Mom's signature looked wrong. Too smooth, too perfect. None of the slight tremor she'd developed in her last year. There were bank statements showing transfers I knew Mom would never have approved. 50,000 here, 30,000 there, all moved to accounts in Scarlett's name. Timestamps showed most of them happened while I was visiting, like Scarlett waited until I left to pounce. Then I found the recordings. Mom had been recording phone calls. I guess she figured out how to do it on her smartphone, probably watched a YouTube tutorial, which is so Mom it almost made me smile despite everything. The first one I listened to made me pull over because I was crying too hard to drive safely. Scarlett's voice. Mom, we've talked about this. Elizabeth doesn't care anymore. When's the last time she called? See? You can't even remember. She called yesterday, Mom said. Her voice was weak, tired. We talked for an hour about her student who won the spelling bee. You're confused again, Scarlett said smoothly. That was last month. Look, just sign these papers and we can be done for today. My hand over yours, just like always. There were dozens of these, recordings of Scarlett slowly, methodically isolating Mom from everyone, telling her I'd said things I never said, convincing her that her friends were too tiring to visit, pressuring her to sign document after document. But here's the thing that broke me. In some of the later recordings, Mom's voice changed. She got sharper, more aware, and I realized she wasn't actually confused. She was playing along, gathering evidence. One video file was dated 3 weeks before she died. Mom had propped her phone up somewhere in the living room and hit record. The angle showed the couch where she sat with Scarlett standing over her, holding a stack of papers. I don't want to sign this, Mom said clearly. You don't have a choice, Scarlett snapped. The sweet daughter act was completely gone. I've been taking care of you for months. I deserve this house. You're going to leave it to me, or I'll make sure Elizabeth never speaks to you again. I'll tell everyone you've lost your mind. Mom signed, but after Scarlett left, Mom looked directly at the camera. She was crying, but she also looked determined. Elizabeth, she said, if you're watching this, I'm so sorry. I should have been stronger, but I've been documenting everything. Take this to a lawyer, someone good, someone who'll fight for you. I love you, sweetheart. I always have. I sat in my car watching that video 3 times before I could even process it. The grief was overwhelming, but underneath it was something else. Anger. Pure, burning anger. My mom had been abused. Financially, emotionally abused. By her own daughter. My sister. I needed help, but I didn't know who to trust. Then I remembered. Mom had mentioned a lawyer in one of her notes. Michael Crawford. She'd written, good man, honest, helped your father with his will. I called his office the next morning. When I explained who I was, his secretary put me through immediately. Elizabeth, he said, and I could hear the relief in his voice. I was hoping you'd reach out. I've been trying to figure out how to contact you without tipping off your sister. You know what happened? Your mother came to see me 6 weeks before she passed. She was very concerned. She filed a secret codicil to her will, but she said we'd need proof of fraud to activate it. I'm assuming you found her evidence?" My hands were shaking again. "I found everything." "Good. Here's what we're going to do. Don't contact Scarlett. Don't let on that anything's changed. Can you act defeated? Broken?" I thought about how I'd been feeling all a week. "That won't be hard." "Perfect. Bring me everything your mother left you. We're going to build an airtight case." For the first time since the funeral, I felt something like hope. I spent the next week acting like I'd given up. Scarlett called once to ask if I wanted any of Mom's old junk before she donated it. I asked if I could have Mom's photo albums. She laughed but said sure, like she was doing me some huge favor. Michael and I met secretly 3 times. He went through every file Mom had left, taking notes, organizing everything. He said what Mom had documented was extraordinary. Most fraud cases didn't have half this evidence. Then, on day 10, Sarah called. I didn't recognize the number, but when I answered, a woman's voice said, "Is this Elizabeth? Linda Martinez's daughter?" "Yes?" "This is Sarah Chen. I'm sorry, Sarah Murphy now. I was your mother's hospice nurse." My chest tightened. "Is everything okay?" "No." She sounded upset. "Your sister contacted me yesterday. She offered me $5,000 to sign an affidavit saying your mother was mentally unstable during her final months. She wanted me to say Linda didn't understand what she was signing." I couldn't breathe. "I told her no," Sarah continued quickly. "I told her your mother was sharp as a tack until the very end. But Elizabeth, you need to know. Scarlett's planning something. She's trying to cover her tracks." "Thank you for telling me," I managed. "Your mom talked about you constantly," Sarah said softly. "She loved you so much. She kept saying she was scared, but she knew you'd figure it out. She said you were the strong one." After we hung up, I forwarded Sarah's information to Michael. He said it was perfect. A witness willing to testify about Mom's mental state would destroy any defense Scarlett tried to mount. I was starting to think maybe, just maybe, we had a chance. Then Scarlett posted on Facebook a picture of her standing in front of Mom's house, my childhood home, with a for sale sign. The caption read, "Bittersweet moment. Time to let go and move forward. Mom would understand. House goes on market officially in 30 days. 30 days. I called Michael in a panic. "Breathe," he said. "This actually helps us. We'll file the fraud charges before the sale completes. Once the assets are frozen, she can't touch anything. Can we really stop her in time?" "Elizabeth," he said, and his voice was firm, confident. "Your mother left you an arsenal. We're going to stop her. Trust me." Can Elizabeth stop the sale in time? The fight is just beginning. The hardest thing I've ever done was pretending to be broken while Scarlett celebrated. She called me 2 days after posting that for sale sign. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message saying she was having a family dinner at the house. One last gathering before I sell, and I could come if I wanted. The smugness in her voice made my teeth clench. Michael said to go. He said we needed more evidence, more recordings of Scarlett incriminating herself, so I wore a wire. Like an actual wire. Michael got it from a private investigator friend of his, and I spent 20 minutes in my apartment bathroom making sure it was hidden under my sweater. I felt like I was in a cop show, except I was terrified. The dinner was on a Saturday. I pulled up to Mom's house, Scarlett's house, legally for now, and saw cars everywhere. My aunts, uncles, cousins. Basically everyone who'd believed Scarlett's lies about me. My cousin Jenny met me at the door. "Lizzie, I wasn't sure you'd come." "Neither was I said honestly. Inside, the house barely looked like Mom's anymore. Scarlett had repainted, replaced furniture, covered up the floral wallpaper Mom loved. It was all modern and gray and cold. Scarlett was in the kitchen, wearing an apron that said, "Home is where the heart is." The irony was almost funny. "Elizabeth!" She came over and hugged me. I forced myself not to flinch. "I'm so glad you came. I know things have been difficult." "Yeah," I said quietly. "I just wanted to see the place one more time." She patted my arm like I was a child. Of course. Look around all you want. Dinner was torture. Scarlett held court at the head of the table, Dad's old spot, telling stories about Mom that were half true at best. Everyone laughed and nodded. I picked at my food and tried to look appropriately sad. After dinner, while people were having coffee in the living room, Scarlett's husband Rick came into the kitchen where I was doing dishes, just being helpful, playing my role. "Elizabeth," he said, keeping his voice low, "I want you to know, I think Scarlett's being too harsh. You should get something." I looked at him surprised. Rick had always seemed like Scarlett's puppet. "She won't listen to me, though," he continued. "Once she gets an idea in her head, that's it. Between you and me, she's been obsessed with this house since we got married. Always talking about how it should be hers." That's when Scarlett walked in. "What are you two talking about?" Her voice was light, but her eyes were sharp. "Just saying Elizabeth should visit more," Rick said smoothly. After people started leaving, Scarlett walked me to my car, and this is where she got cocky. Overconfident, stupid. "You know, Lizzie," she said, using the nickname I'd always hated, "I want you to know something. You're not a bad person. You're just weak. Mom knew it too. That's why she left everything to me." "Scarlett, those signatures on all those documents? Mom's hand was so shaky at the end, I basically had to sign for her. Saved everyone a lot of trouble." She laughed. Actually laughed. "And getting power of attorney was so easy. Just had to convince her doctor she was slipping mentally. Which, let's be honest, she was." My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. "You're probably right. I know I am. Look, once the house sells, maybe I'll give you something. A few thousand, for old time's sake." She patted my shoulder. "But you need to understand. I earned this. I put in the time. I did the work. You were off playing teacher while I was taking care of our dying mother." I drove away, shaking with rage, but the wire had caught everything. Michael filed the fraud charges 2 days later. The asset freeze happened so fast Scarlett didn't even see it coming. She called me screaming about how her bank accounts were locked, how the house sale had been blocked, how her lawyer was telling her she was in serious trouble. "You did this," she shrieked. "You lying, vindictive—" "No," I said calmly. "You did this. You forged documents. You stole from Mom. You abused her. I took care of her. You manipulated her. You isolated her. You made her final months miserable." My voice was shaking now, and I can prove all of it. She hung up on me. The family group chat exploded. Scarlett was telling everyone I'd lied to lawyers, made up evidence, was trying to steal her inheritance. Half my relatives believed her. They sent me angry messages about being jealous and greedy. Michael scheduled an emergency family meeting at his office. He said it was time to stop hiding. On the day of the meeting, 23 family members showed up. Scarlett walked in with her lawyer, looking confident. She saw me and glared. Michael didn't waste time. He had a projector set up. "Before anyone speaks," he said, "I need you all to watch something." He played Mom's recordings. All of them. Scarlett's voice pressuring Mom, lying about me, threatening her. The video of Scarlett demanding signatures. Screenshots of forged documents. The room was completely silent. Then Michael played my wire recording. Scarlett's voice admitting to forging signatures, bragging about manipulating the doctor. My Aunt Carol started crying. Uncle Jim looked sick. Jenny was staring at Scarlett like she'd never seen her before. "This is fake," Scarlett said desperately. "She edited these. We had them analyzed by a forensic expert," Michael said calmly. "They're authentic. Every single file." Then he dropped the final bomb. Linda Martinez filed a secret codicil to her will 8 weeks before her death. It was properly witnessed and notarized. The codicil states that if any evidence of financial fraud or elder abuse is found, the original will is void. Everything passes to Elizabeth. Scarlett went white. But more importantly, Michael continued, Linda documented severe emotional and financial abuse. The DA's office has been reviewing this case. They're prepared to file criminal charges. That's when we heard it. Sirens outside. 2 police officers walked into the office. One of them looked at Scarlett. "Scarlett Martinez Patterson, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and elder abuse." They read her rights while she screamed that this was a mistake, that I'd framed her, that everyone would see the truth. But no one was looking at her anymore. They were all looking at me. And for the first time since Mom died, I could breathe. What will Scarlett lose? Everything. Justice is coming. The trial was 3 months later. February 14th, Valentine's Day. I remember thinking how fitting it was, a day about love, and I was watching my sister face consequences for betraying the woman who loved her most. The courtroom was packed. Our entire extended family showed up. Most of them sat on my side this time. Scarlett wore a conservative navy dress, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. Her lawyer had clearly coached her on looking sympathetic. But when she looked at me, I saw pure hatred in her eyes. The prosecutor was a woman named Diana Reeves, and she was thorough. She walked the jury through every piece of evidence Mom had collected. Every forged signature, every coerced document, every recording. When they played the video of Mom looking at the camera and saying, "Elizabeth, I'm so sorry," 3 jurors were crying. Scarlett's lawyer tried to argue she'd been the primary caregiver, that she deserved compensation for her time, that maybe she'd been overzealous, but her heart was in the right place. Then they called Sarah Murphy to the stand. Sarah testified that Mom had been completely mentally competent, that Scarlett had repeatedly tried to pressure her into giving Mom unnecessary sedatives, that once she'd walked in on Scarlett yelling at Mom to, "Just sign the damn papers." Scarlett's lawyer tried to discredit her, but Sarah had nursing notes backing up everything she said. Michael testified about the secret codicil, about how Mom had come to his office frightened but determined, about how she'd said, "I need to protect Elizabeth. Scarlett has lost her way." Then I testified. I talked about growing up with Scarlett, how she'd always been competitive, always needed to win, how Dad's death had changed her, made her bitter, how she'd started viewing Mom's house as her inheritance before Mom was even sick. I talked about my visits, about calling Mom and hearing fear in her voice, about how Scarlett would suddenly appear in the background of video calls, and Mom would change the subject. "I knew something was wrong," I said, my voice breaking, "but I didn't realize how bad it was. I should have fought harder. I should have protected her better." The prosecutor asked me to describe finding Mom's evidence. "It felt like she was still protecting me," I said, "even after she was gone. She knew I'd need proof. She knew Scarlett would try to turn everyone against me. So she spent her final weeks documenting everything, making sure I'd be okay. That's who my mother was. She was brave, she was smart, and she loved me." I looked directly at Scarlett when I said it. She looked away. Then came Scarlett's turn. Her lawyer had advised against her testifying, but she insisted. Classic Scarlett, always needing to have the last word. Big mistake. She started okay. Talked about the burden of caregiving, the stress, the financial strain. Then the prosecutor asked her about the recordings. "I was trying to simplify things for her," Scarlett said. "She was confused. Medication made her foggy. I was helping. By forging her signature?" Scarlett faltered. "I had power of attorney." "Power of attorney doesn't give you the right to steal." The prosecutor pulled out a bank statement. "Can you explain this transfer of $63,000 from your mother's savings to your account? It occurred the day after she was hospitalized. She wanted me to have it." "Then why did you tell the bank you were her?" Scarlett didn't have an answer. The prosecutor played the video of Scarlett telling Mom, "You're going to leave it to me, or I'll make sure Elizabeth never speaks to you again." "Can you explain that threat, Ms. Patterson?" "I was upset. I didn't mean—" "You also told investigators your mother was mentally incompetent. But you just testified she was clear enough to make financial decisions in your favor. Which is it?" Scarlett's face crumpled. "I deserved that money. I took care of her. Elizabeth abandoned us, and I was the one who stayed. And you deserved your mother's house so much that you forged legal documents, The prosecutor's voice was sharp. You deserved her savings so much that you threatened and manipulated a dying woman? She was going to waste it all. She didn't need that money anymore. The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order. Scarlett's lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. The sentencing hearing was 2 weeks later. The judge looked tired as he read through the charges. Ms. Patterson, what you did to your mother was cruel and calculated. You abused her trust, exploited her vulnerability, and caused her immeasurable suffering in her final months. The evidence shows a pattern of financial exploitation and emotional abuse that is truly disturbing. He sentenced her to 3 years in state prison, ordered her to repay $340,000, every cent she'd stolen plus penalties, issued a permanent restraining order preventing her from contacting any family member who didn't explicitly agree to it. Rick filed for divorce the next day. Scarlett's real estate license was revoked. Her friends, the ones who'd stood by her at first, slowly disappeared as the details became public. She lost everything: her reputation, her career, her marriage, her freedom, and the ring. The court ordered her to return Mom's wedding ring to me. It arrived in a manila envelope with a court seal. I cried when I opened it. After sentencing, I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. Scarlett was my sister. I'd loved her once before greed and jealousy twisted her into someone I didn't recognize. But I had work to do. The house, my house now, legally and finally, was a mess. Scarlett had redecorated in her style, cold and modern. I spent months slowly restoring it. I found Mom's old paint samples in the garage. I tracked down the wallpaper pattern she'd loved. I put Dad's chair back in its spot by the window. In one of Mom's cloud files, I found detailed notes about what she wanted done with the house. She'd written, "If Elizabeth gets this place, I want it to feel like home again, like love lives in the walls." So I did that. I made it a home. But I also wanted to make sure Mom's suffering meant something. I used part of the settlement money to start a foundation. The Linda Martinez Foundation for Elder Abuse Prevention. We provide resources for families, training for healthcare workers, and legal support for victims. Sarah Murphy became our first board member. Michael Crawford donated his legal services pro bono. We've helped 43 families so far. Last year, on what would have been Mom's 72nd birthday, I hosted a family gathering at the house. 28 relatives came. We ate Mom's favorite foods, told stories about her, laughed and cried together. Jenny brought her kids. Uncle Jim brought his new puppy. Aunt Carol showed me photos of her new grandchild. We planted a tree in the backyard in Mom's memory, a cherry blossom because she always loved when they bloomed in spring. No one mentioned Scarlett. Earlier that day, I'd driven out to Mom's grave. I sat there for a long time, wearing her wedding ring, telling her about the foundation, about the house, about the family slowly healing. "You taught me something important, Mom," I said. "You taught me that patience and documentation can defeat deception. That truth is worth fighting for. That integrity matters more than money." I traced the engraving on the ring. "Forever, Tom," in Dad's handwriting. "True inheritance isn't money," I said. "You and Dad left me something better. You left me strength and honesty, and the knowledge that love means protecting the people who can't protect themselves." The wind picked up, scattering cherry blossom petals across the grass. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you for fighting. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for being brave enough to document everything, even when you were scared and sick and being threatened by your own daughter." I stood up, brushing dirt off my jeans. I had a lesson to plan for Monday. My third graders were learning about family history, and I'd promised to bring in photos. As I walked to my car, I thought about Scarlett. She had another 2 years left on her sentence. She'd written me once, a rambling letter full of excuses and blame. I didn't respond. Maybe someday I'd be able to forgive her. Maybe not. But I'd stopped carrying her poison. 3 months ago, I met someone. His name is David. He's a social worker, and he volunteers at the foundation. We're taking things slow. On our third date, I told him the whole story. I expected judgment or pity, or fear that I came with too much baggage. Instead, he said, "Your mom sounds incredible. And you honor her every day." Yesterday, David and I planted flowers in Mom's garden. The same varieties she'd always grown: roses, lavender, forget-me-nots. He didn't complain when I got emotional and had to take a break. He just held my hand and waited. This morning, I stood in that garden wearing Mom's ring, watching the sunrise. The house looked beautiful, lived in, loved. Inside, on the mantel, is a photo from Mom's last birthday. She's smiling, really smiling, and I'm next to her making a goofy face. It was taken 8 months before she died, when things were already bad, but I didn't know it yet. In the photo, she's wearing her wedding ring. Now I wear it, every single day. When my students ask about it, I tell them it belonged to someone brave, someone who taught me that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. Scarlett sits in prison with bare fingers, and I hope a lot of time to think. Rick remarried. I saw the announcement on Facebook. Her old friends have moved on. The house she was so desperate to own is mine, filled with love and laughter again. She wanted wealth. She got consequences. I wanted justice. I got peace. Your legacy isn't what you take. It's what you give, how you treat people when they're vulnerable, and whether you choose integrity over greed. Every decision you make is a choice about who you want to be. My mother chose courage in her darkest hour. What will you choose? If this story moved you, if you've experienced something similar, or if you just want to support families dealing with elder abuse, please share this. Visit our foundation website. Donate if you can. But most importantly, check on the elderly people in your life. Make sure they're safe. Make sure they know they're loved. Because your legacy isn't about money in a bank account. It's about the lives you touch and the love you leave behind. What will your legacy be?